Good evening. This is Rachel with Infused Meadows, and we're making goulash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few seconds or a minute to go over everything that I have that's ready now. So I'm still running off of that cheese that my husband picked up. What was that for? The $1 million pasta. So I'm going to be using that in tonight's. Now, use what cheese you like, but for those of you in the U.S., I would go towards, maybe a Monterey Jack, but feel free to use any kind of cheddar that you like for any dishes that you make, that's cheesy. Okay, so what we also have is I've taken one large onion and I've finely diced up 3/4 of that large onion. For those of you in the U.S., we're not talking like the large Vidalias, just like a large white onion or yellow. You can use either of those for this. So a large white or a large yellow. We are going to need 1 tablespoon at least of our olive oil into our pan. That's just to saute up the onions real quick. Now I'm going to be using 1 pound or 500 grams of ground turkey tonight. And then I've already chopped up 3 large cloves of garlic. So you've got roughly about a little over a tablespoon chopped. Now, if you use one of those garlic presses, it may not come up to a tablespoon. That's fine. You just want at least 3 large cloves, nice and however you want to do them, okay? All right, so we are going to go in with 3/4 a teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Now in this bowl, I have 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. In this bowl, I have 2 cups, 2 cups of tomato. Okay, so I'm not using tomato sauce. What I've done, because I find that some tomato sauces are very, very thin. So to avoid that, what I did was I took 2 cans of tomatoes, just regular tomatoes, okay, whole like plum tomatoes that have been peeled, and then I put those into my grinder, and then this, I've turned that into like a very, very thick sauce. So that's why I'm going in with 2 tablespoons of the tomato paste to really help thicken that up, because we're going to also come in, I've got 4 cups of beef broth, and I will start out in my pan with 2.5 cups. And then I'll increase it. And whatever doesn't get used, hey, beef broth's good for you. I will drink it, or my husband will drink it. All right. I also have a little bowl that's already got my seasonings in it. Okay. So what I have in this bowl, now this will be in a written description down below in the description box, so that you can click on that and then you can go print that out if you want to. But you can watch how I do it so that you know in what stages I do what if you want. Up to you. I appreciate the watch. Hopefully, you make some of what you watch. All right, so in this, I have 1 tablespoon of parsley. Now, everything in here is dried. I don't feel like I should have to say that, but I will anyways. So 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, 2 teaspoons of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of paprika, a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 a teaspoon of the red pepper flakes. And then I've added a 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, which will help if your tomatoes are extremely acidic. Acidity. If they're extremely acidic, that sugar will help calm that, okay? So that's what I have going. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here, and then I'll move you over, and then that way you can watch a little bit more. I'm not going to show everything. We don't need another 20-minute long video, I'm sure. But I will get my oil in my pan, and I'm going to start frying the ground turkey up, and we'll be back. Okay, so I've got my heat on medium. And then I just like this little wooden thing for dicing up my meat. I don't like those masher things that they sell, just so you know. That's why I use this. Also, if you think that the spice mix sounds long, please understand that I'm making everything from scratch with the basic ingredients, a lot of which I dehydrate myself, and then I grind up into a powder. So for those of you in the U.S., if you don't want to use the basil, the basil, the oregano, the parsley, and the garlic powder, then you can go grab yourself, I forget the name brand, but it's Italian seasoning that we sell in the U.S. It already has all of that in that, and then you'll just go in with 2 teaspoons of that, okay? But if you don't want to have to go buy something that's mixed up that you don't know what's in it, then, you know, you'll start with these basic ingredients, and from there we're going to put it together, and we're going to create this dish together, okay? So, now that I've got that said, I'll be right back. Okay, so once you have your ground, whatever you're using, you can use ground beef, you can use ground turkey, and I think you could use ground pork. I have not tested that one yet, but I do plan to, because as my mom and I were talking, you know, pork was always called the other white meat, because when you think about it, when you cook your pork loin, your pork chops and all that, it's just as white as chicken. And it has its dark meat, same as a chicken. Now, I'm not saying it's the same. I'm just throwing that out there for those of you that could be on a budget. You don't want to buy the ground turkey because it's going up in price. Ground beef, every time we all turn around, is going up in price. So, ground pork, I believe, is an option. Now, once we're about halfway done, you've got your meat good and, you know, cut to the size that you want. We're going to go in. Excuse me. Okay. Now is the best time to go ahead and go in with our 3/4 teaspoon of salt. You use whatever salt you have. You do not have to go buy special salt, okay? And then you want to go in with 1 teaspoon of black pepper. And you're going to toss all that around. Make sure that you've still got this nice and cut up, because, you know, sometimes your meat will go back together. Okay. Not all of it is done. That's fine, because I don't want it all completely done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with my onion. And we're going to cook this until those onions are nice sauteed and translucent. And at that point, we will be back. And just another tip, if you're using ground beef and it's very fatty, you'll want to drain that grease off before you add your onions in, okay? You can probably keep a little back to help saute up those onions, keep them sticking to your pan, but you don't need everything swimming in that grease, okay? So it's just a little FYI. And also, I forgot to mention, we need 8 ounces. I'm using macaroni noodle. And we will be going in at the end with about a cup of cheese. Now, in the U.S., the cheat that I used to do years ago before I found out about all the ingredients was I'd go to the store and buy myself a box of Velveeta's shells and cheese, because that cheese pouch always made this excellent. Now, I know that we're all doing what I've been doing now for years, which is trying to make things more healthy from scratch so that you know everything that's in it. And so this recipe might be better for what you're looking for, because everything in here is from scratch, okay? A lot of the stuff I've grown in my garden. I will do some, now I don't make macaroni noodles, but eventually I will do some videos, you know, showing you like egg noodles when I don't have so much going on. I just have so much here lately. That's one thing I haven't gotten to, but we'll get there. We'll make pasta. Because I'd like to do some more bread recipes. I just, normally like this, I would make some garlic bread, but I didn't have time this morning. So tomorrow I'm hoping that I might be able to sneak in a garlic, like some garlic knots, and I'll do a video on that. Alright, you see where we're at. So now what I want to do is I'm going to change this out for another spatula. I'm going to go in with my little black one here. Not knock that over. Alright. We're going to add, and yes, I know, I still have that garlic. If you've been watching any of my videos, you know that I do garlic towards the end. I don't like to overcook garlic. You can saute it, you know, and then as long as your dish is going fairly quickly, you're good to go. But unfortunately, I'm not, and I don't want that garlic cooking for, 10 minutes. 1 second. Okay. So we want to stir this in. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in the Worcestershire and that tomato paste, or for those not in the U.S., tomato double concentrate, I think. Yes, it's double concentrate. So you want to stir this in. You should see this get really good. It'll start thickening pretty much immediately. Now, if you did like I did with the cans, the tomatoes, they're already fairly quick because all you've done is taken those tomatoes and you've chopped them down. But now if you don't do that, you're going to want to go, if you use tomato sauce, 2 cups of tomato sauce rather than what I've done, then you'll want to add 1 full 6-ounce can of tomato paste. Alright, I'm going to add my spices. Get those good and in there. And now what we want to do is we want to start pouring in our beef broth. Now I try to get all except for 1 cup. Anywhere between 3/4 a cup to a cup is what I'm going to reserve. Excuse me, I'll put that on that because it did spill out just a little. You want to mix this in really, really well. And this is also where that tomato paste, just the 2 tablespoons that I've used will help this to thicken up. And the regular tomatoes themselves. Once everything looks good and combined, you're going to pour in the macaroni noodles, elbow noodles. Give those a stir. You want to make sure they are good and submerged in your liquid. Okay. Now, what I like to do is I'm going to caddy this so that it's not all the way on there. It won't prevent anything other than this will help keep condensation building up in the lid and then going back into my pan. What I'm looking for is for this to come up to a simmer. Once I have a simmer, I'm going to let this simmer for 10 minutes. Okay? So at 10 minutes, we will be back. And once you reach that simmer, don't forget to give it a stir from time to time. Don't just let it set. Okay? You don't want those noodles sticking to the bottom. So just occasionally, walk over, give it a little stir, and put your lid back on. We'll be back. Okay, so out of 10 minutes, I have 4 minutes left on my cook time, and you can see how much liquid is gone. This is why we reserved that last 1 cup of beef broth. Okay, so you'll want to do the same. That's why you want to sporadically walk in and give it a stir. That way, if you find yourself needing that little bit more liquid, you can add it. And you don't find that your pasta is now sticking to your pan because it got too dry. Okay? So, I hope that helps if you were curious why we reserved that 1 cup. So, again, this is a medium heat. Alright, I'm going to caddy that lid again and we're going to keep on going. We'll be back. Okay, we're down to the last 1.5 minutes. I'm going in with my garlic. And then you just want to stir that in and let it finish and we'll be back. Okay, so our timer has gone off and we want to go in with at least 1 cup. You can make this as cheesy as you want, okay? But we're doing about 1 cup of grated cheese. And then you'll want to give this a good stir. Now, I recommend, a good cheddar. You do not want a cheddar that is dry and crumbly. You need something that is silky smooth and will melt properly in your food. So, if you've got something that's not been aged and it is a very crumbly cheese, there's a good chance you're going to end up with clumps. and it's not going to melt right. So just keep that in mind whenever you pick the cheese that you're going to use, okay? You can probably also add a little bit of Parmesan if you like, which, yes, I know is a dry cheese, but add the powder, you know, dehydrate it yourself, sprinkle a little bit of powder over the top in your own bowl if you'd like that. You could probably even try like a taco mix, would probably be really good in this. I've always just done cheddar, so if that helps, cheddar or Monterey Jack. All right, now you can see how beautiful this is. I am going to let this sit for just a few minutes. I'm going to keep stirring to make sure all this cheese is well incorporated. And I'm going to dip out some bowls. And for that, I'll probably just do a quick short for those that don't scroll through people's channels and they need the short to direct them. Alright, so I hope you make this. I hope you love it, if not like it. And if not, then hey, I hope you find the recipe that's out there for you. And I'm sorry, I think you got a glare. I do not know why. Could be the time because, you know, it's dark out, light in here. Anyway, hope you make it, love it, if not like it, and if not, then I hope you find the recipe that's right for you out there. And as always, I hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.